Hi, my name is Karla Downing, and I'm going to talk to you about my experience with abuse. I was raised in a home where I was the oldest child. My mother was a Christian and my father was not, but more importantly, my father was a raging alcoholic. He got very angry when he drank, and he was physically, emotionally, verbally, financially, and sexually abusive with my mother. He never was physically abusive with us kids, but he was emotionally and verbally abusive. But mostly he was angry. So when he would drink, he would just tell all kinds of horrible things to my mom. He would call her names. He would scream and keep her up all hours of the night. The way I responded to that, being the oldest child, was at 2 years old. My mother says that I told her, "Mom," or "Mommy, Daddy should not talk to you that way." I knew instinctively, within my being as a 2-year-old child that was not right. And then after that, when I was 3.5 years old, was when my mom says I began to stand beside her when my dad would get to the point where he was going to become violent. I literally, at 3.5 years old, would come into the bedroom and I would stand behind my mom and I would tell my dad, "No, you won't touch her." I remember doing that in my childhood, and my dad would scream at me and yell at me and tell me to get out, but not quite so nicely. And I would refuse to go. My dad was 6 foot. He was a big man. He was very, very angry. And yet, as that child, I stood beside my mom. And my mom says she remembers feeling safe. And I know that right at that point, my role in that family began to be the voice. I was the voice that stood up and spoke up and said, "This is not right, this cannot be." I remember as a child begging my mom to leave him. And my mom would say, "That's okay, God's gonna take care of us." The only thing that my mom did to go against what my dad said was to bring us to church. She brought us to Baptist church every Sunday. She brought us to Sunday school, church, vacation Bible school every year. That was a safe place for me. I loved church. I remember as a child feeling so good there and loving every single thing about church. So when we would get home from church, though, then my mom would be punished from my dad. He would be angry and yell at her and punish her for having taken us to church. Now, as a child, knowing instinctively that wasn't right, and literally staying up at night, listening through the wall. I had a walk-in closet that was adjoining my parents' bedroom wall. I would stay up all hours of the night and listen through the wall with a cup, trying to hear when it was time for me to come in to protect my mom. And also there were times that I hid my mom in my closet from my dad. One time when she was pregnant, when I was in 4th grade, I literally hid my mom in my closet for 4 days, bringing her food, water, having her literally use a bathroom trash can. I can feel my hands tightening as I'm telling you that, which is a sign that that's still traumatizing. I remember being scared, and my dad would ask me, "Where is she? Where is she?" And I would tell him, I don't know, because he was used to her leaving. She would run to my neighbors and they would hide her. When he got very violent, we would run out in the middle of the night to hotels. So this was my childhood. When he broke things and threw things, I would help my mom sweep them up. And I do remember this time when I was 8 years old, I told my mom, "Mom, it's okay. I know that you can't handle doing everything for us to leave, but if you rent a place for us, I can't do that. I will do everything. I will pack, I will unpack," and I could have done it. So in other words, I was a responsible child. I was the voice in that family. So growing up, you would think that I would know what abuse is, but this was back in the days when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s. We didn't talk about abuse. We didn't talk about difficult relationships. I had no idea. So I, of course, desperately wanted to get married. I was a very strong Christian. I met my husband when I was 20. I met him in church. I felt very safe with him. He was very comforting. He was soft. He was very gentle. And we got married within 5 months. I got married at 20. I talk about that as that relationship fitting kind of like a glove, because his mom was a victim of the verbal and emotional abuse of the dad. My husband was not treating his mom right, but I became the voice in that relationship. I started talking to my husband, telling him the way your dad treats your mom isn't right, trying to talk to her, trying to get her to stand up to it, just like I did with my mother. And yet, what happened in my marriage was kind of shocking to me, from the point where I felt incredibly safe. When we first got married, my husband, of course, was a workaholic like my dad, which he wasn't while we were dating, but he just did nothing but work after we got married. And then also he was incredibly close to his father. His father was a narcissist, textbook narcissist, and my husband and his father were very close, and my husband did not know how to stand up to his dad and say no, or to separate out what he wanted to do with his dad. So basically, when they were together, my husband did everything his dad wanted to do. So we moved to Phoenix, Arizona, when we had been married for about 2 years, and my husband worked with his dad in a company that was just being started, not by his dad, but someone else. And of course, they were very close. And I would speak up to my husband and say, you know, this isn't right. Your dad is asking you to put him first over me. And my husband would say, my dad is sensitive, you're crazy. So that is what started to happen in the marriage. My husband was very insensitive to my feelings and my needs. He would tell me to keep my problems to myself. He was very sensitive. He would become very angry if I did things that I didn't think was wrong, if I said something the wrong way, if I didn't say something, if I said too much, if I looked at him wrong. He was incredibly sensitive. And so he began discounting me, invalidating me, refusing to listen to me, telling me I was crazy. He punished me to try to teach me how I should be, and he told me that he was supposed to do that because I was somebody he needed to teach. And I told him that is not right. But over the time, as this continued to happen, 6 years into the marriage, I went from knowing instinctively what was not right, but not having the words, never being told what these things were, to at 6 years, I literally had a breakdown, an emotional and mental breakdown after the birth of my second daughter. And so the only place I knew to go was Al-Anon, because my dad had finally gotten sober in AA when I was 17. And so he said, go to Al-Anon. And I said, well, my husband's not a drinker, so how is that gonna help? He said, it'll help. When I got to Al-Anon, I remember the lady that I asked to be my sponsor said to me, and I told her, I'm so confused. I don't know what's going on. I don't understand this. I'm confused about everything. And she said, that's okay. We're going to figure this out together. And that was just like a godsend to me. I was like, I'm not alone. Somebody's going to help me. And one of the things that she said to me not long thereafter was, if your husband told you your hair was black, you would go to the mirror to see if it was. This is my natural hair color. I have always been blonde. And I said to her, you're right. That is how invalidated I was from him, and how much I questioned myself. I had gotten to the point where I didn't trust any of my feelings, a classic sign of abuse, not to trust my feelings, not to trust my perceptions. Just, he could say something and it would just literally rock my world and throw me, and I would be just in this place of confusion and self-doubt and insecurity and just second guessing and just feeling crazy. But yet at the same time, I had a whole bunch of abandonment issues from my childhood, from growing up in that alcoholic home. And so that fear of abandonment, that fear of him being mad at me, was making me absolutely crazy. So I tried desperately to explain to him over and over and over again what I meant, what I was thinking, what my words actually meant, and trying to get him to understand, trying to reason with him, not understanding at all about abuse yet, not recognizing that he didn't really want to understand. He didn't really want to know what it was that I was thinking and feeling and perceiving. He was only looking at what he was thinking, what he was perceiving, and his way. And he had a picture and an idea of me in his mind that was distorted with the beliefs that he had, with the perceptions, with the things that he had taken on from his dad. And the way he saw me was, he used to accuse me of being literally, as I was desperate to explain and explain and explain, he would accuse me of being hard and being stubborn and stiff-necked. And I would just be like, I am not that. I am only trying to explain and make things better. That was projecting what he was onto me. And yet that was incredibly painful. So I'm going to tell you that when you see somebody who is in an abusive marriage, when I look back and I think about how I looked, I remember maybe about 5 years into the marriage, I was working at a school district as a speech therapist, and one of the male teachers there said to me, Karla, why don't you smile? You never smile. That is one of the things that you're going to notice in women who are in these painful, painful, painful marriages. There's a heaviness in their faces. I can recognize it immediately now when I meet a woman. When one walks into my classes on difficult marriage and she's in an abusive relationship, I can tell. She's nervous, she's insecure, she's hesitant, she has a heaviness in her face, she doesn't smile, and the light has gone out of her eyes. I know when I see a woman who's in an abusive relationship. The other thing that you can notice is I remember the times that I was in Bible studies or in groups with other women. When they start sharing about their marriages, I got quiet. I couldn't talk about my great marriage, my wonderful husband. We did things as a family, but it was always tarnished with that pain. So I didn't share. When people started talking, I got quiet. When you see a woman who's normally talking and interacting, and when that comes up and she gets quiet, there's something going on. So and then the one time that I did bring up my difficult marriage, about probably 5 years into the marriage, in a women's Bible study small group, and it actually was run by the pastor's wife of the church that I was attending. And I brought up the pain in my marriage, and she said, let Jesus be your husband, Karla, it's okay. And that was such a stinging rebuke to me and increased my pain so much, because what I found out at that point, and this is before I'd gone to Al-Anon, was sharing in the church was not safe. That felt like immediately that said to me, what is wrong with you? Why aren't you happy? Why aren't you just okay? You know God, you know Jesus, He's your Savior, you should be fine. And I'm gonna tell you, that shut me up for many years in the church. That increased my pain. It made me doubt myself even more. Like, why can't I? My heart was so drawn to God. I literally was checking with the Bible, checking with what God wanted. My prayers were just, I was there. I didn't need somebody to tell me there's something wrong with my relationship with the Lord. But to tell me that should erase my pain was not reasonable. So I'm going to pause now, and I'm going to tell you the rest of the story when we come back a second time. Thank you.